If you just picked up a new Miata or you're maintaining an older one, changing all the fluids is one of the most important things you can do. Let's get in the garage and do that today. Welcome back to the Auto Obsessive Garage. Chadwick with you again for another installment of Project Mariner Blueberry. So, we are bringing this car back to where it should be, and this is going to be the case if you just picked up a Miata yourself and you're following along with this instructional video series, or you're trying to maintain your old Miata. Whatever the case be, this is a great step to follow, and this is a very important step in the process. We don't know too much about the car. Maybe you do have some service records, and that might change what you're doing here. But if I don't have those kind of service records, you bet I'm changing all the fluids. And when I'm talking about these fluids, I am talking specifically about the transmission fluid, the differential fluid, obviously coolant's in there too, engine oil, all the good essential fluids. You can also add power steering if your car is equipped with that. That's another great one to do. And brake fluid would have been included in the brake episode. So, hitting all the major fluids. As a bonus on this one, we're also going to swap out that fuel filter. It's an inline fuel filter under the car that always gets you dirty, always gets you soaked in fuel if you're doing it the wrong way, which is the only way I do it. Just kidding. You're going to get messy doing that job, but it's important. So let's go ahead, swap out all the fluids on this Miata and put a new fuel filter on there. And we're getting that much closer, guys. That much closer. Let's get in the garage and get some work done. Time to give our Miata some fresh coolant. After replacing all these hoses, we're gonna find out if we have any leaks. It's always fun. It's always a fun game to play. And next we'll top up our overflow. Time to do our trans and diff fluids. On the Miata, you're gonna wanna use a quality GL4 fluid to do the trans. I like Redline's MT90 for this task. Fantastic fluid. It'll go in there nicely and the Miata will enjoy it. Now for that rear diff, you wanna use a GL5. So the 75W90 by Redline is also a good gear oil for this. You can choose what you want, but the big thing is GL4 in the trans, GL5 in the diff. Let's go ahead and put these fluids in. I'll show you how I do it. Ooh, we're into the car now, and what you're seeing is the fill bolt. It is a square fill bolt. I used to have the tool for this. I've had success also with, and you guys are probably more than likely gonna have this, an adjustable wrench. That works just fine. Make sure it's really tight so you don't round off that squared bolt, but that should come out pretty easy. So for the drain, the usual suspect, we have a 24mm drain plug right there. So we'll go ahead and pop him off. Always make sure you loosen your fill first. Loosen that bad boy, make sure it's gonna come off. Have your drain pan ready just in case it's overfilled, and then we'll go ahead and drop the drain plug, or drain bolt. Let's get to it. Here comes our pretty gnarly looking transmission fluid. Kind of gross. You see a little bit of transparency down there, but this is pretty old fluid. Oh, it smells lovely. Time to put some good stuff in this trans. When this finishes draining, we're gonna go ahead and put that drain bolt back in, and we're gonna rig up our funnel system and piping to go into the fill. I've got my funnel and tubing going right into the fill hole of the transmission. It's a straight shot right over the exhaust, straight in the side there. So this will be pretty straightforward. It's really simple, guys. What we're doing is filling it until we see the fluid start to drip out, and we'll know we're full at that point. The other thing is shine a flashlight underneath your car. Have a flashlight sitting down there and lighting up the fill hole. That way you can see when it starts to drip out and you're not just wasting fluid. Again, it's our MT90. Let's go ahead, top this transmission off. We're at the rear of the Miata now. We're looking at the rear diff. You can see some pretty cool blue overspray. Your Miata may or may not have that special feature. Anywho, we've got the fill bolt up here, which is a 23 millimeter in this case, and the drain bolt, 24 millimeter in this case. So just like everything else, I know this is redundant. Pull the fill plug first, make sure it comes out okay, and then we'll go ahead and drain this. It should be 0.6 to 0.7 quarts of fluid. We're gonna use that GL5 fluid, the Redline 75 W90 gear oil. It's gonna be a good fit for this vehicle. So let's go ahead and drain whatever's in here, some kind of old gnarly fluid probably, and go ahead and put that fresh fluid in. For this, we really don't have the space to run a funnel, as you can see. So what we're actually gonna do is use a pump. You can use any kind of fluid transfer pump. I invite you guys to go to your local parts store and get one if you don't already. It makes jobs like this so much easier. So let's go ahead and put that fluid in this diff. Let's go ahead and change the oil on our 92 Mazda Miata. The only thing I hate about doing Miata oil changes is the oil filter location. It's a poor choice. Shine the flashlight down there, you can see that white filter that's currently on the car. And what's unfortunate is you can still access it. So the issue with its location is that when you do pull that filter off, you literally soak your hose subframe down there. So that's cool. The oil kind of just hits that, goes every which direction. So kind of a pain in the butt. Never liked that design. My Mazda Speed Miata had an aftermarket oil filter relocation kit, which I thought was a really great idea. So we're gonna go ahead and do this anyway. Let's make a mess down there. So we got our oil. What we'll be using is something I've used for quite a while, Shell Rotilla T6, the 5W40. I've had great luck in modified and stock Miatas historically with this. So we're gonna put this stuff in it, new oil filter, pretty straightforward. It takes about 4 quarts to fill up the 1.6 liter BP engine, so let's give it some new fluid. Let's drain out that old nasty stuff too. All right, 19 millimeter takes the drain bolt off of the oil pan, so let's see what condition this used fluid is in. Nice and dark and rich. Yeah. It's been a while since most of these fluids were changed. I'm gonna say that right now. That is pitch dark. Look at that. At least the viscosity is good. It's not sludgy or anything like that. I don't see any weird additives. No coolant came out, so that's cool. But boy, it just looks like some old oil for us to check out here. I think we'll have a pretty happy Miata when it gets its new oil. All right, time to reach down in the abyss and put our new oil filter in. Just going for a K&N Professional Series. Should work fine. Gotta do some contortionist moves to get it on. Not too bad. You can do this from below too, but I find it a little easier to go from upstairs here. Figure out why this isn't screwing on. There we go. Spin it right on there, get her nice and tight. Now if you use a wrench to put your oil filters on tighter, you're a special kind of horrible person. No need, just go ahead, tighten it as hard as you can. These things seal up extra tight once they go through a few heat cycles. Perfect. All right, time to put our drain plug back on and fill her up. After you fully tighten the drain plug up, it's time to add oil. It's more eventful if you don't tighten the drain plug first, but I like to keep my oil in the engine. Once you've added your oil and checked with the dipstick that you're at the level you need to be at, let's go ahead and close this back up. fresh oil in the Miata. All right, it's time to swap out the fuel filter on this Mazda Miata. Who knows, might be original. We'll see. Some Phillip head screws should let this plastic cover fall off, and then we can access the filter and replace it. It's a good idea to do this if you don't know the history on your Miata. Let's go ahead and swap this out. While you're down near the fuel filter, not a bad idea to clean out these drains. Now these tend to be pretty nasty. I like to take a screwdriver, stick it up there. See all this debris falling out? Yeah, you want to clear these out. There's one on the driver's side as well, so go ahead and nice little bonus thing to do. See all that junk falling out. And while you're down here, might as well do it. We've got the fuel filter exposed now. A solid plan of action is to crimp these hoses coming into either end of the fuel filter, inbound and outbound. The reason being is you don't want to take a gasoline bath. Well, I'm sorry I judged early, but you might not want to take a gasoline bath. So that's a good thing to kind of flow or cut the flow. You're then going to loosen that 10mm nut holding it, and then you can slide the little clamps here off the hoses. And then you're going to probably pry if they've been on there for a while. This guy looks crusty, like it's been on here for a very long time. So we're going to slide those off, probably use a flathead to kind of pry the rubber hose off without breaking it. Now if your hoses break apart, obviously I've got some extra fuel lines so I can actually replace them. They feel pretty good, they're still pretty pliable and rubber, so I'm going to go ahead and keep them if they don't crack. But that's my plan of action. Crimp those hoses, slide those off, pry them off, and have that 10mm bolt already off that's holding the bracket for the fuel filter up there, and that way you can drop it pretty quick. Have a drip pan underneath just in case. All right, let's get this fuel filter off. All right, get your new fuel filter ready to go. Here's the part number on the replacement part I'm using. Going with the wicks, this is number 33289. First thing you want to hold up and make sure your fuel filter is set up like your stock one. Even if someone that you really trust told you this is the right part number, you always want to hold it up, make sure it makes sense. And as you can see, my fuel filter is primed and ready to go. So I've got my clamps on my hoses, hopefully those work. And I've got everything ready to go, ready to pry the lines off and pull the other filter off. This is the part that gets messy. All right, new fuel filter in its home. This shield is cleaned up a little bit. Old fuel filter looked pretty funky, had some pretty bad smelling gasoline coming out of it. So yeah, definitely was due for a replacement. So there we go. One important item off our list.